Okay, welcome everyone. This is our first episode of Taboo, and I want to welcome to you Mr. Ronald M. Allen. And I'm going to let you continue introduce yourself because you know yourself better than me.
Is that my signal to jump in?
Yeah, I'm kind of strange.
Well, my name is Ronald. This is why it's called Taboo
That's right.
Character Chronicles. April and
That's
I
right.
met, oh my goodness, 5 or 6 months ago. We must have touched base a few times across social media, specifically Facebook. And it was our passion for being authors and published authors, and specifically self published authors, that drew us together. And
That's right.
April has a fascinating, uh, shall we say, we call it a library, a library of books in the publishing
Yeah.
business. Shelf, that's right. You have an interesting shelf
Shelf.
of books.
Yeah, it is
That's the term. And
interesting.
the characters draw, yeah, they draw on our ancestry, they draw on the strength, the passion, the humility and humanity of African Americans. And we're going to get into some of the terms that we typically use and begin to craft our own narrative. Because
Mhm.
most of us have been born into using terms that are, in some respects, insulting, others
Mhm.
specious, and still a third set which really do not identify or give credence to our existence. So
Mhm.
we had a discussion the other day, and I trust our intent is to bring solutions, answers,
Right.
um,
Mhm.
to evolve, to elevate the conversation. So, April, tell us a little bit about yourself. We just found out this week we're both from the same country of origin.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. Well, yeah, our parents are. Our parents are. So, yeah, my
Yeah,
mother's from.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my mother's from Trinidad. Well, I guess not parents. For me, it's my mom. My dad is from here.
Roo, roo,
Um,
roo, 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 roo.
she was born in San Fernando, and I believe she was raised in St. James. Um, so she moved
Nice.
to the U.S. when she was
My
16.
father, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's your father that's from Trinidad.
See, my father was from San Fernando,
San Fernando, yeah.
and my mother from Scarborough, Tobago. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Wow.
So that is, yeah,
I
that is
love it.
definitely
I
that's
love
what you
it.
call a
Yeah.
spiritual link.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a spiritual link
Yes.
that I think when families today talk about disparities, and we always like to
Mhm.
push this phrase generation gap, we're losing
Yeah.
the essence of what family really is about,
That's true. That's true.
right?
That's true.
In the West,
Yeah.
they love to use this term generation gap. It's an interest gap, right? It's a lack of understanding your culture and your ancestry.
Ooh, I never looked at it that way. That's interesting. I never
So,
looked at it
so
that way. Yeah.
April, tell us now. So,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Mhm.
And that's why I love the term you said, taboo, because people don't necessarily, oh, number one, they feel uncomfortable talking about it.
Yeah.
Yet I
Right.
think they miss the strength that it evokes once you clear the air, once you get rid of the self doubting.
Mhm.
People
Mhm.
like to use the term, what is that? When you think you're not real. What's that phrase they use?
Oh,
When
like
you're
fake
being
or not
fake.
fake?
Yes, there's another term,
Yeah.
fake. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think that's because they really don't know or appreciate where they're from.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. I can see that. And see, like, for me, I
Yeah.
grew up in a West Indian community. I grew up in
In
South
South.
Florida, and
Okay.
it's a
There
very
you go.
broad West Indian community. So you have Jamaicans, you have Haitians, you have everyone from the all of the Caribbean, and I loved it because you got to you got these different perspectives, and you got to see where we're common and where we're different, and you learned a lot from each other. The food was amazing because you're getting Haitian food, you're getting Jamaican
Yes.
food, you're getting Trinidadian food, you're getting Guyanese food. It's so, and you get all these different foods, all these different flavors, all these different people, and we all come together, and it showed like this melting pot. And a lot of us, it was our parents who are from the islands, or some of them, it was them. They moved here as a child, and I just loved it. I do love that about my childhood. I really love the that I grew up in a Caribbean community. So, and you do learn a lot. I guess it's not a generation gap. I think with the with kids coming from the Caribbean, there was a sense of, I don't, I don't know if I should say pride, but you were happy that you came from the islands, whatever island it was, or that you're a descendant of, because it was
Is it
different
a
for us.
pride of history, of ancestry?
Is it What was that again? I missed it.
Yeah. And do you think it was a sense of identity that, do you think it was a sense of identity? Okay. Do you think that it was a sense of identity that gave them um, a foothold from the past, a sense of presence, being where they are, being curious, wanting to explore what was possible, and therefore not being afraid of the future because you have somewhat of a self-directing mentality?
Well, yeah. I mean, growing up, okay, so even though we're in a West Indian community, we're still in America. And because we spoke differently, um, a lot of times we were kind of looked at funny. So, being
You
a
had an
you
accent.
you know what yeah, yeah, like, I've been told, "Oh, you speak white," you know? And,
Oh,
be yeah, I've been
that's a
told
whole other
it's a
accent.
whole it's a whole other, but what happens is when you're a descendant, like, for me, my Trini accent will come out if I'm being funny or if I'm angry,
Yeah.
and I noticed that. So other people
Yes.
who they weren't born in Trinidad, but they're raised by Trinidadian parents. When we get mad, it's a straight Trini accent. Or if we're joking around or we're with family, it'll come out more, Trinidadian accent. But as far as like just speaking to anybody else that's not from the Caribbean, we speak. I guess it comes out sounding as if we're speaking white. So that's what I've been told, and I've heard it. I grew up with that, so we were kind of shunned in a way. So I think because of that, we learned to come together. It didn't care if you're from Guyana or you're from Jamaica or wherever you're from. We were one because we were dealing with the same thing on that level. And I think that's where we kind of came together at, which I thought was kind of nice. But yeah, that was cool.
I, I have to agree with that.
Yeah.
When I came here, well, I first came here back in 69, 70, when my mother was sponsored by her sister. They were
Mm,
medical professionals, RNs, doctors, and multiple professions within the healthcare
mm,
industry. When I came here, I did not try to blend in. I was who I was. When I
yeah.
did subsequently come to live here permanently in 88, I was told by many people who had no exposure to the world that I couldn't be what I was representing myself to be. So
Right.
having that right, having that cornerstone of identity, I have always remained and adapted when necessary, evolved as required. At the same time, I have my morals, my scruples. Um, I still make sure we have dinner together as a family.
Mhm.
Um, we
Mhm.
discuss very detailed things which are needed in order to prevent external energies and forces that try to destroy you. Um,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
April, we discussed about our good friend Donald Trump.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Loosely. Very loosely good friend.
in, in Europe, we'll say 5 times removed as a family member.
I like that. I like that.
What he
Yeah.
shows us, and and to your point, where people say you sound a certain way, their lack of exposure to the world is what they're expressing. And
Mm.
and what we found with Donald Trump is that an individual can come into a household either through whatever medium, social media, radio, TV, newspaper, it doesn't really matter, challenge what we think are strong relationships, and
Mhm.
unfortunately, in many cases, destroy those relationships without ever physically being present in front of
Yeah.
them. So,
Yes.
so I,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think when we talk about taboo um, topics, I
Mhm.
think we need to revisit what we think is our relationships,
Mhm.
and how we construct those relationships.
Right.
Um, because again, I don't care who it is, and he's not the first to have been able to do this.
This
Many
is
other
true.
cultures and civilizations, yeah, they know how to work the emotional
Mhm.
strings and triggers that
Mhm.
people have. Fears, basically, fears and ignorance.
Mhm.
Um, so that's another strength that you and I shared as soon as we found out, had a good conversation, found out that we do have roots in the same
Mhm.
culture. So
Yes.
that's very cool. Now that leads me to your stories. As a
Mhm.
self-published author, tell us some of the stories that you create and why. What created this in you?
Oh. Well, I actually started writing in middle school from a friend who said she was starting a writing club, and she's like, "Oh, join my writing club." The school told her she gets a certain amount of people, they'll make it official for her. So I was like, "Why are
Okay.
you asking me? Like, I don't, I don't know how to write, you know." Yeah, and I said, "I don't know how to write." She said, just try." So we went to class. In science class, I sat down and randomly wrote out a whole story. Yeah, pretty much not the whole story, but within that hour, I actually wrote quite a bit. And it turned out to be my first book, Endurance, many years later. And when I handed it to my friend, she was like, "And you said you didn't have a story in you."
Okay.
So I believe, my personal belief is, I didn't see that in myself. God already knew that was in me. She probably didn't know that was in me, but for some reason she was compelled to come to me, and
Yep.
she was relentless. She pushed, like, "You could do this, you could do this." And I'm like, I've never did anything to show that I have any kind of writing ability at all. So I just thought it was strange. But she went through, and she, whatever reason, she was compelled. So that was the spark. After that, I didn't write. I wrote for a while, and then I stopped when I was getting ready to enter into high
And
school.
what was
And
this book?
mm, oh, this is Endurance,
You
the
didn't
first
return to
book.
high school?
Oh no, no,
Okay.
no!
Yeah.
Before I stopped
Endurance.
writing.
Where
Sorry,
did that come from? Where did the story come from?
and that's, I don't know. I wrote a story about a runaway. It started with this girl who. A lot of my story starts out with uh, women being abused. And so I don't know where it's coming from, because I was never in a as a child, I wasn't in an abusive situation. Getting licks is just you're that's just a part of being Trini. So I don't consider that
Hmm.
abuse. I consider that discipline. So it wasn't anything like that. But it started out with this girl. Her name is May, and she was getting abused by her stepfather, and it was starting to get worse. Let's just put it that way. So she ends up running away from home after he had beaten her really bad. This is the original story back in middle school. And she met up with another kid in her school who he was being abused he was being neglected. So his father was an alcoholic, and his uncle,
Okay.
they were wealthy, but his uncle had a house. His uncle put him in this house.
Okay.
This kid is pretty much raising himself. His uncle comes by, makes sure everything's paid and take care of, but the kid is pretty much on his own, and
Right.
he his father's out of the picture. His father's just an alcoholic at that point. This is if you read Endurance now, it's changed dramatically from that point because there's certain parts that just didn't logically fit for me. I was 14, so no, I'm sorry. I was 11 when I started writing. I was 11 when I started writing. So there's a lot of things in life I just didn't know or understand. But
When
yeah,
you wrote this,
when I originally wrote the story,
and
I was
and
11.
and you don't know where these stories came from, these images, these.
I just literally I write what I
Wow.
see in my mind's eye.
I was still playing
I
with
write what I
Lego.
see and what I feel.
Oh, okay. You
Yeah, I
write
just
what you
wrote what I
see and
see and what I
feel.
feel. Yeah. So I ended up not until I was in my 30s,
So,
I sat down
so
and
when you
actually
say
wrote
write,
the whole
what you
book.
see and feel.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Oh, did you hear? Oh, I don't know if you heard
So it
me.
was brewing in you for those years.
Oh, yes, 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 it was.
Yeah,
Yes, it was. Yeah,
absolutely.
and it just grew and developed. When I
So
was in
now,
my
how
30s.
many books have you self-published?
Oh, over 20, over 20, I believe. I have to go back and do another count because I think Forbidden is my most recent one. Now I have fictional books, and then I have some nonfiction books,
Okay.
and then I have like journals and stuff. So I don't really count the journals too much. And the nonfiction books, they're not my passion. My passion is the fictional books. So I believe I have 18 fictional books. So yeah. And then the other ones is just nonfiction books, just
18.
like about writing. Yeah.
And are they of the same genre? Or
I actually have a
uh,
hard time
are they of the
selecting a
same
genre.
genre?
No, no,
Yeah,
not
the
exactly,
topics,
but they
the
do. Yeah,
lines.
it's kind of hard because it's almost like a multi-genre kind of book. So endurance could be romance, but it could also be supernatural. It could also be a little bit of sci-fi. I have a rule like if I'm bored writing it, the reader's going to
Mm,
be bored reading it.
nice.
So I don't put any restrictions like okay, I'm writing romance, it has to be.
That makes
I
sense.
can't write strict romance. It'll make me nauseous. Like it will make me nauseous to only write romance. It has to have some kind of something going on. It has to have some spice, right? So but my books are
So
character
tell us some
driven.
of the characters that you write
Okay.
about.
So I don't even know which one to start with. Which
So
one
tell
should
us some of the
mhm.
characters that you write about.
Uh, I guess I could start with my first one,
Start
which
with the
is
first and
May.
come forward.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
start with the latest one.
The latest one, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so my latest characters are Amali and Dakota. Um, I love them both. My
Okay.
favorite out of those two is actually Dakota, And yeah, it's his looks, but there's more. It's his character that I love. So, in the book Forbidden, he's not he's 38 years old, unmarried, no kids. Um, he's never actually been with anyone, with a woman or anything. It's not really spoken about in the book, but he's actually a virgin. Um,
Okay.
but
Okay.
what I love about him is his character, his integrity. And he rescues Amali from he sees a man burying her uh, in the woods, and he realizes that she's not dead. So he unburies her and he brings her to his tribe. His tribe is they're hidden and they're living in a natural cave system. So
Hmm.
he brings them and they're like, "No, what are you doing? Put her back with her people. We can't," because their thing is they don't believe in having any outsiders. How they've remained hidden and protected for so long is they don't allow any outsiders in.
A
So
little bit like
they're
Wakanda.
yeah. Yeah. So they right. So they're like trying to keep that peace. Like, look, we don't want that drama. But an old man who is it's an elder who was just strolling around at night. He couldn't sleep, so he's strolling around and he hears the ruckus at the opening of the cave, and he comes to see what's going on. And that's where he sees this woman. But for him, what he sees is he doesn't see a beat up woman laying there in Dakota's arms. He sees a little girl. He sees a little girl who
Okay.
has been neglected and who needs a father. That's how he sees her. So
Ah,
he tells Dakota, bring her in and we'll see why the creator has placed her here, because he sees it like she's been, out of all the places that she could have been dumped, she was dumped here. It's for a reason. So let's find out what's
right.
going on with her. Yeah. So they bring her in
You,
and mhm, you can go ahead.
well, I was going to say it's interesting because when you think of society today, we are very protective and suspicious of
Mhm.
even young children who
Yeah,
don't seem to be in their place that we think they should be.
right,
And
right.
then we've seen many social experiments where they have a nationality or a culture, or to coin it, and the best phrase, the way that most people see it, a black or a white child, which is totally specious.
Mhm.
And you'll find that the social movement towards the white child is favored.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're missing one, a mental maturity,
Mhm.
two, a sense of belonging
Mhm.
and safety as a
Yeah.
social creature, humans.
Mhm. Mhm.
Three, we talk about goodwill and certain times of the year, Christmas and other certain national holidays, we'll give a fleeting expression of compassion to
Yeah.
those who
Yeah.
who
Fleeting is
are
right.
going through a tough time.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's very interesting that your stories seem to mirror the
Mm.
current present day behavior of societies globally, even globally.
Yeah. Yeah, because in that story the way she ends up in that situation, she's dating a politician, a man who's running for, I think, he's running for mayor. He's at the very beginning of his political career. He's running for mayor,
Hmm.
and his thing is he's trying to get uh the community to really support him, and he figures, okay, well, I'm going to get with this black girl. She's, she's smart, she's intelligent, um very beautiful, and she's an investigative reporter, so it was kind of like a double bonus. He dates the investigative reporter, that where he keeps control over her, digging too deep into his past, into his secrets, and
Yeah.
he comes out appearing as
Okay.
someone who cares about women's rights, minorities, and immigration situations. Like, he comes out appearing as somebody who cares about those things, when the truth is he doesn't. He's completely the opposite. So he's
Okay.
basically, it's like, he's that was, and the whole reason why they had gotten into an argument, because she had found some stuff. She was a great supporter of him, and she had found some things on him that shook her to her core, and she realized, this is not the person who I thought he was. They got into a really nasty argument, and it got physical, and he thought he killed her. So that's how she ended up where she was.
Oh,
Is Yeah. Yeah, it's I had fun with that book. I had a lot of fun with it.
so this is so this is your creativity. This is where you seem to blossom as an author, as a writer. How can, when we talk about taboo, we talk about character chronicles, how can we share with those that are going to listen to this program the connection, which you and I
Mm,
have had a number of discussions, and this is why
yeah,
we're beginning this journey. Um,
right.
Again, people need to consider what is their intent when they
Mhm,
find themselves in different situations. If they find that family members are not behaving in
mhm,
safe manners, in a safe way, when they're at work and they're being marginalized. We've seen a lot of that more recently, and
yeah,
specifically with so-called whistleblowers, right?
yeah.
Um, do we really have the capacity to focus and correct um, corporate interests or an individual's interests, or do we continue to just try to support and keep our own families together?
Mm,
Because that's what I'm kind of hearing in the backdrop of your
mhm,
stories. If an elder sees something very different than, let's say,
mhm,
the 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 parents, his children, and yet then the younger age group might be more welcoming, but with terms, so to speak, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like, you're in college, you're in high school, and you navigate to certain groups, and there is a
Mhm,
testing, there's a validation process, and if you don't
mhm.
pass those tests, then you don't become part of that group.
Right,
you
right.
know
Yeah.
and then there'll be other people in our society who will constantly question, and we're focusing on their questioning, not their intent. Why are they thinking this way? Why do they come
Mhm,
to the proverbial conversation with such negativity, without us making sure that their intent is of a collective mind?
mm.
you know
Yeah.
yeah. um
Yeah. Yeah, because even with all the politics that happened that led her to that situation, um, what ended up taking forefront is the root of what she really needed in her life, and what kind of made
yeah.
her whole in the end. Yeah. Yeah, the politics kind of, it's like the background story, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's very much about family, but that book. So, yeah. Oh, that's good. That's a good point.
Now, April, you have children, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have children, right?
Mhm.
How,
I
how many
do.
children do you have?
I have two
How
girls.
many?
Two girls.
Two girls.
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
What and I always ask parents this, even in my coaching and counseling services. I say, what is different in the way you related to your parents and the way that your children relate to you?
Mm.
What's your
Well,
observations on that?
well, I know what, like, I'm gonna speak from my youngest. Okay. easier. My oldest is more complicated.
Okay.
But my younger
Okay.
daughter, we're we're very similar but yet very different. She, and especially now, she's 11, so she's really coming into her own character. But I feel like she's always had her own character, but I it's getting stronger.
Okay.
You know, there's certain she's very, but even as a child, she was very clear on what she liked and didn't like, you know. She's like I would say like the strong silent type. Um my oldest is she was
Oh, introvert.
hilarious. She was yes. Well, no, not really. She's very outgoing. Let me tell you. This girl, we every time we go to Walmart, this is my youngest. Every time we go to Walmart, she has to say hi to everybody. I'll be honest with you, it's annoying. Because and she's determined. If she says hi to you and you don't see her or acknowledge her, she's going to stand in
Yeah.
your face and keep waving and saying hi until you acknowledge her. That's just her
How
personality.
old?
Like
How old is she again?
she's she's 11.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
this is a comparison between me and her. One thing that we do that's similar with that attitude. I was I don't I was probably 5 or 6. I used to stand on the where we lived in New York. It was a two-story, and I would stand at the
Yeah.
window and I would say hi to people. So they would hear me, but they didn't know they couldn't see me. So I asked my mom if I could sit out on the porch. So sometimes I sit out on the porch, and sometimes, she wanted to be inside. She didn't want to be outside. I grew up in New York, and well, not grew up, well, till I was 9. And so one day she decided, I convinced her, and I don't know how I did this.
Okay.
I convinced her to let me sit on the windowsill of the second story. Now, it doesn't just drop. There's like a whole, like the roof comes out. So there's a whole overhang. So my mom held
Yep.
on to the back of my shirt, and she's
Yes.
reading her book, and she's holding my shirt, and I'm saying hi to everybody. And I love it. I love it because they can see me. And my
Yeah.
my reason for doing this is because I felt like, and I don't know where it came from, everybody was having a rough time. Like everybody has rough days, and these are people who they're getting off their shift,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're walking home, and they always look so down and sad and exhausted. So I would say hi and they would perk up, and they would be kind of like, it was kind of like they get happy, and they would perk up and they would look around, and then they say, oh, hi, how are you? Well, my mom thought she's like, okay, she's good, she's not going anywhere, she's staying here. Her mom had called her for something really quick. My mom is like, don't move, stay here. She went
Yep.
off the room. There was somebody coming down the road. I had to say hi, and I was saying hi, but like they didn't see me. They couldn't see me. They're trying to figure out where's this hi coming from. So I walked to the edge of the roof and sat down and poked my head over the top of the roof and said
Right.
hi. Scared the crap out of this poor woman. And she's like, "Oh my god." And she ran to the front door and knocked and said, "There's a little girl on the roof." Yeah, I got in trouble. but but I got to say hi. Like, so I look at when my daughter's like persistent to say hi to people. I know where it's coming from. I can't get too mad at her. She's getting it from me, unfortunately. My oldest is she's different. She was like my comedian. She was very funny, so she always had me laughing. And yeah, so she wasn't like the high type
Okay.
like her sister, but she's a comedian. So yeah, it's different. I think who you have kids with is very
The
important also.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
A lot of people, and again, our program title "Taboo,"
taboo.
characters chronicling, is very appropriate because my wife and I, 30 years, Miriam, she
Wow.
she she's seriously passionate about animals, and when I say that, the joke in our family is, if we had a cathedral ceiling, we'd have a giraffe. Um, some of the animals we've had, people have said, "Oh, so you have a you know?" No, we don't have a
Wow.
farm, not yet. And the reason, well, the reason why I bring it up is you can learn so much if you open up to how individuals, just like you said, you've got two daughters, very different, yet they
Mhm.
pull on certain characteristics of your personality, and at the
Mhm.
same time are very independent of you as their
Mhm.
life source.
Yes. Yes.
And we found the same thing with animals, dogs, cats,
Mhm.
birds. Some of the tropical birds we've had have been very clingy. They want certain things
Mm.
at certain times, and you have to accommodate
Yeah.
that because you brought them into your life. When we talk with people in our sessions, we ask them, well, what is it that you need? And then we'll say,
Mhm.
what is it that how would it make you feel if you were able to provide those needs in a way that you felt safe, comfortable, and secure? And so that
Right.
begins to open up and in some reinforce those relationships, because sometimes
Mhm.
they start to fracture. People,
Right.
as I say, Miriam and I have been together for 30 years. I never speak for my wife, by the way. Um,
Mhm.
from my perspective, we're getting closer because we're constantly making sure we're rethreading. For those of you
Mhm.
in the weaving, we're constantly rewaving those strands, certain doubts, certain parts
Mm.
of your relationship you start to take for granted. We do not. So
Mhm.
when we talk
Mm.
about meaningful conversation, right? When we talk about meaningful conversation, it's not about the toothpaste cap. It's why
Mhm.
is that bothering you? What is it that's causing
Yeah.
you to feel out of
Yeah.
sorts? And of course, then you
Yeah.
can grow to the more serious issues of, of infidelity, abuse.
Mhm.
By the way, April, during the COVID, the first 6 to 9 months of the COVID, back into what is it now, 18, 19, um,
Mhm.
we saw a 30 to 50% spike in spousal abuse. And
Yes.
that was
Yeah.
directly attributed to people being forced together, whereas previously they would go out both to work
Right.
or other activities.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
again, that speaks to how are we really paying attention to one another for the long term? Life is a marathon, right? Healthy
Mhm.
relationships are a marathon.
Mhm. It is.
So most of us, I shouldn't say most, yeah, I shouldn't say most, but many of us will do the 15 to 20 years for kids. After
Mm.
that, all bets are off. And
Wow.
we see this time and time again. They'll stay in the same residence, right? They'll stay in the same residence. They'll live together, but the richness, the passion, the interest, the desire to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and get a cup of coffee or a cup of
Mhm.
tea, or even if you have, my wife uses a breathing apparatus.
Mhm.
Even using that, if it's left downstairs and she wants me to get it for her, is it a struggle? Is it a confrontational conversation? Um,
Mm.
and I think it's all of these things that life demands of us, and
Right.
our willingness, intent to program ourselves, manage ourselves.
Mhm.
We're so good at saying you must be efficient and qualified and have the right attitude when you go to work to these non-entities, companies, right? They're called
Right.
non-entities in
Yeah.
business. And you
Mhm.
must get certification and you must be recertified at certain times, right?
Right.
But do we use those same mantras and beliefs, actions for our so-called loved ones? Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
one thing I have to ask, a slight change of
Mhm.
venue here. The guy with the six pack, that reminds me of me when I was about his age.
I'm sure you look just like that.
Why that is exactly right.
um,
If I take my shirt off right
right.
now, I probably do. But where did that come from?
So a
Why
lot of
that
the
image?
men in my book, I do describe them as they're pretty tall, they're pretty broad, they're pretty muscular. Um, and it's not, I mean, yes, it's physically attractive, yes. But the other part to it is I kind of want to demonstrate, like, I see men as like a healthy man, he's gonna naturally be protected, protective. Sorry. So he's gonna
Yeah,
naturally be protective of
yes,
his family,
yes,
of his
yes,
spouse, of the woman that he cares about. And so to me, like, that is the other kind of underlining message of it. Like, he's gonna use his muscles to protect his family and what he loves, who he cares about,
yes,
you know?
yes.
And it doesn't, in real life, he doesn't have to have those muscles. There's men, when I feel like a man knows if you are wife material, if he wants to marry you pretty early on, like right away. I don't feel like it takes them years to figure it out. They know when I say early, and this is mine. You could correct me because I'm not a man, but I feel like they know. I think they know pretty early. Like, I don't think it takes days. I think they know if this is a woman that is of marrying quality, or is this a woman that I'm just going to play with, you know? And I feel like it's us as women that we tend to,
Okay,
we you know
okay.
we turn him into the man we wish he was for us. And I do write a lot about that, about being with someone who you're not supposed to be with, or liking someone who's just not right for you, but maybe you're not seeing it, you know, vice versa. So I know I went on a tangent, but
Yes,
that goes back to the
yeah,
muscles. Like, yeah,
yes,
they're
yeah.
handsome, yes, they're attractive, but even though he looks this way, he may not be for you. He may not be what you're looking for, or vice versa, you know? So, yeah. I don't- But yeah, the muscles are nice. And other than that, the muscles are nice.
I do agree.
Hmm.
People seem to be so passionate about each other. And in fact, it was our niece on my wife's side in
Mm,
California when we went down to Virginia. She was in a university in Virginia, and um, she looked at us, and I could see her almost trying to figure out how is it that you guys are so funny with each other and silly with each other. Um,
mhm,
I honestly believe we spend more time trying to assimilate
mhm,
into the noise of what a relationship the noise of how relationships have been taught to us,
mm,
the roles of
mhm,
males and females, instead of
mhm.
drawing on that intellectual strength of a woman and a male,
Right.
right? Of a
Yeah.
man and a woman. I think in this situation, we're about to buy a house. We're about to decide whether our children go to school. We're about to engage in a contract for a business investment and realize that maybe the
Mm,
woman should take
mhm,
the role, the lead for that period of time, for that introductory period of time, instead of our
mhm.
egos. And we talk about this in my newsletter, the id,
Yeah.
the libido.
Yeah.
There's
Yes.
new research by the national uh, there's new research showing that as we evolve in different situations, as
Mhm,
we develop strengths or we find ourselves in different challenges, our minds adapt. And
mm,
it's the more mature mind that realizes, you know what, with the resources we have, maybe the wife, the older child, a grandparent, maybe outside counsel is preferred. And I'm not just talking about the obvious accounting, legal, medical. That's obvious.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's those gut instincts. You know how we talk about the gut instinct of, I think it was
Right.
Jack Walsh from GE back in the day. He said he
Mhm.
was inundated with reports and data and statistics and charts and tables and pie charts, but it's his gut instinct that he made
Mhm.
decisions based on.
Mhm.
Um, we've kind of lost that intuition which you spoke about earlier with children.
Mhm.
Um, why is it that a child can wave, but if an adult did, we
Weird. Yeah. What's wrong with them? Yeah. Yeah. If I was to stand in somebody's face and make them say hi to me, I think I'd be on the floor.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So
Yeah.
there's, I think, our societies and cultures have been stripped away so completely
Yeah.
that we've lost the real meaning of the village, of supporting and helping one another. Um,
Right.
but that is really cool. Your writing. I know we're coming up to the end of our hour, and you and I did discuss some of the other topics, and I want to tweak people's interests if they're going to
Mhm.
come back or if they stumble on these videos that we're going to be producing. Let's talk about
Mhm.
one particular subject which we're going to dig a little deeper in, and I think you had mentioned it to me the other day, and I'm trying to see. Yes, uh,
Shan-
Shanquilla Robinson,
Shanquilla. Yep.
Shanquilla.
Shanquilla Robinson. Yep. Mhm.
Um, and just quickly for those who are listening, this is a story, and then April, I would like you to take a little run with it because you certainly introduced it. You introduced it to me. This is a
Mhm.
story, an event of a young, very intelligent, very capable person, to all intents and purposes, had her head screwed on correctly, found
Mhm.
herself being a victim of her own group, her own social group. Um,
Mhm.
she lived in North Carolina, I believe, traveled down to Mexico with a group of friends, and was subsequently killed.
Unalived.
And,
Yeah. Mhm.
and unfortunately, the law enforcement, the authorities, even now, I think it's more than a year, still really
No
haven't
justice.
done a thorough investigation. Do you want to pick up on that a little bit?
Yeah, so Shanquilla Robinson, just beautiful, beautiful brown skinned woman. She had, I think, I know she had one business. I don't know if it was two, the other one was still was established as yet, or she was starting the
Mhm.
second business. But her first business, which I love, she was actually a hairstylist for kids, which I could have used right now. But
Ah.
yeah, she had her, yeah, and you think about the kids who are probably, kids don't, they don't understand they don't understand the way that we do. So they're to her, to them, she's missing, and they may not all understand why. But this beautiful woman
Yeah.
traveled on a vacation with they weren't really her friends. She was only friends with one of them. And he's the one who invited her,
Hmm.
and they went down to Mexico, and it was brutal what they did to her. They beat her to death. And they had it. They filmed it and posted it on social media. And it's such a clear case of we know who did it. It's not like a who done it kind of
Ah.
thing. It's clear. It's very clear
Yeah.
what happened, what went on. But yet because it happened in Mexico, and I mean, as soon as it happened, they ran back to the States, and I guess, yelled out base, and they're walking around North Carolina today free as a bird. And this poor woman is she's not here anymore. And it's just it's sad. It's sad. We have no justice for Shanquilla.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah, we're gonna be
in our
discussing that what
discussions,
Friday? Hmm.
yep, yep. In our discussions, when we talk about taboo character chronicles, we are looking to unearth those somewhat unpleasant discussions, um, which shed light on the way that we think.
Right.
And we're going to try, we're going to not try, I don't like that word try, we're going to
Yeah.
unveil our own idiosyncrasies
Mhm.
and our own prejudices, if I could use that term,
Mhm.
that limit the benefits that a more open mind and a more realistic mindset of how life
Mhm.
rolls out on us. And I say that because I've been very fortunate. I'm 65 going on 66,
Mhm.
and I've seen so many people recoil into themselves because of life's challenges.
Yeah.
And now, meeting April and setting up this. I mean, I did a blog talk radio many years ago,
Mhm.
2011 through 2014 on blog talk radio. You can still see the issues,
Mhm.
and those were fine. Although now the climate of the world, and certainly in America, is that if we don't talk, if we talk about a topic and we don't agree, we don't
Mhm.
want to
Oh,
discuss it,
so
Yeah, and
right?
that's
We
not
don't,
right. Yeah.
and that's not right. You're going to hear April and I disagree on things. We will
Mhm.
disagree respectfully. We will disagree and share why we disagree. And we'll
Mhm.
disagree and realize that maybe tomorrow we might be a little closer with our understanding.
Yeah, because it helps you to understand. You got to look at things from a different person's perspective, even if you don't
Yeah.
agree with them.
And be
Yeah, and it's
absolutely,
okay. It's
especially,
okay to
and
disagree. Yeah.
think of it as um, a board of directors of a corporation. And I love to bring corporate uh, analogies and metaphors into personal lives. The two are just one. But if you think of a board
Mhm.
of corporate board, um, and everyone has a different interest because they're running different divisions and different departments in different regions of the world. Their 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 missions, their objectives, their outcomes may be very different, yet they all have to
Right.
coalesce into providing profit, providing safe environment for the employees, not in all countries,
Mhm.
and and still, walk away by building this entity. We used the word before,
Right.
this artificial um, entity. So
Mhm.
if you take someone who's of a very different perspective and you learn to understand and appreciate that perspective, you, the
Mhm.
individual, become more aware of
Mhm.
individuals' intents, and therefore how can you go about, use the phrase, pulling together collaborative, beneficial uh, outcomes, which is what
Mhm.
business does all day long. All day long, it's
Yeah.
a constant struggle. It's CEO has to maximize stock ownership
Mhm.
and therefore push down employee benefits or operational costs,
Mhm.
vendor legal responsibilities. So, how can we do that within families? That's really where we're going with all of this. And
Yeah.
April's stories, if you have a chance to read them, go on. I've been sharing the links. You'll find them absolutely mirroring the corporate world, and yet we somehow separate the two. When we wake up in the
Mhm.
morning, we're the family, and we're obviously
Mhm.
concerned about business. We go into the work environment, and we don't realize that it's really one of the same. One of the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
Um,
That's true.
yeah, April, we're coming up to the end. We're actually at 8 o'clock, but I think we've got a couple of minutes. Anything else you'd like to share? I know. Oh my goodness, we haven't
Storiness.
even done the app.
Yes.
Your app. You have to
It's
bring it up next time as well.
like the elephant in the room in the background.
Everyone's saying, "What about the elephant?"
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I found that there's a lot of people who want to listen to books or want to read books, but they don't have the time. There's so many business people. And then I also realized there's so many people who are bombarded with so many different things that are thrown at us in social media. We're constantly bombarded. So I wanted to create this kind of like a little haven right there in the palm of your hands. You can log into the app, turn on and listen to a good book, listen to a good story. So that's the whole purpose of Story Nest. It's supposed to be your mental escape. You can use it while you travel, on the way
Yep.
to work, just whenever you need a break. There's short stories on there. They're like 45 minutes, some are an hour. It doesn't matter. You can listen to it as long as you want, and you can listen to as much as you want. There's no stress. You pay one fee and that's it. There's no credits. There's no none of that headache. You just listen and enjoy. That the whole point is really to enjoy. And this show, Taboo, it will be a podcast on the app. So anybody who wants to just listen to it, it's going to be available on the app also. Oh, also, and the app is right now. It's only available on the App Store.
Excellent.
Um,
Excellent.
for iOS, but I will be in the future have it on Android. It's just you have to do them one at a time. Long story. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's another topic we can definitely talk about.
yes,
Our programs will be going out, I believe, every Wednesday and Thursday at 7 o'clock.
Wednesday and Friday. Wednesday and
Excellent,
Friday.
excellent, and that's Eastern time for those. Even though
Yes,
America is the Friday, yep.
yes.
And even though America is the only country that has us pushing back our time in the fall and pushing it forward in the spring, which is totally ridiculous. But there's a uniqueness about that. April, tell us about the
Hmm.
geographical location where you are
Oh,
and how the time zone and the meridian and the longitude and latitude coordinates of the planet.
it's all where I live, right in my house, right where I
It's
stay.
interesting.
Right.
Tell us, please.
Yeah. So I live on a. I
Right.
How I explain it is I
Tell
live
us
on
that
a
one. Tell us.
border. Yes, I live on a border, right? On a border. So, and I'll explain all the borders. So I live in a border city. So I live in Alabama, but literally you can walk to Georgia. You can literally walk to Georgia. So you're that close. We also, if I go into my living room,
Wow.
it's going to be Central
Yep.
Standard Time. And in my kitchen, it's Eastern Standard Time. And so
Yep.
So you have to lock your phone because the city now goes by Eastern Standard Time. Despite that everything else it might be like Central Time, we the people of my city, we go by Eastern Standard Time. So I feel really bad for people who try to drive through here because they're confused. They're just completely confused. The other thing, the funny thing is the city that I live in is actually where we are. We're kind of like again on another border between two cities. So that's and two counties. So it's just yeah, it's completely bordered up. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. But I love it. It's
Absolutely brilliant.
fun.
And for those who have children, yep, absolutely, April. And for those who have children, can you imagine your quarantine or expecting your child to be in at a certain time, and they'll say, but I was in Central Time. I thought you meant Central
Yeah,
Time,
they
not
they got
Eastern
they
Time,
got all about
to be back
one
in the
time to
house.
try that.
Little jokes like that help to,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, for my
exactly,
daughter, she
exactly.
loves it. Yeah,
Like a
because
good cardsman.
technically she's going to
Absolutely,
school
got to
at
add
like
to this
9.
program is some
Yes.
introductory music and external music. This is fantastic. This is good stuff,
Yes.
and we'll see how it goes. We'll continue
Yes.
to bring some interesting programming. We have some really interesting story. Weren't there one or two others, by the way, before we close off for the
Mhm.
night?
Mhm.
Weren't there
Sure.
one or two other um, topics we have decided to talk about just to tease people and let them know what to expect.
Hmm. Um.
Did
So
we have
start. Or what
one or
is it?
two other topics we said we were going to talk about?
Yes, we do.
I'm going to
Let
go
me
back
pull up my
to,
notes. I know
um,
Shanquella was the second
yeah,
one.
yeah, I should have been, yep.
No, you got it.
And there was some interesting, um, for those who
Oh,
wish to see us, of course, you can see us on YouTube. I've even posted a section on Instagram. Not yet. I'm looking here.
so taking
April.
your sanity back
And
is
then,
another show. That's
yes,
a,
here we go. Thomas. Yep. The whole point of this programming is to begin to have people come to a discussion with the right intent. We're not
right.
looking to overwhelm anybody to be right and wrong, who's right, who's wrong. It's a dialogue. And I think we've been on this planet long enough, humans have been on this planet long enough. We've seen the mechanisms of politics, we've seen
Hmm.
the covert attempts of
Right.
corporations in America alone since the 40s, quite frankly. And these are the topics we're going to discuss as our populations become more and more international, and
Hmm.
the younger generation interprets their challenges very differently than we did.
Right.
Our ethics, it will challenge our meaning of privacy. It already has.
Yeah.
And these are the topics that we really need to delve into and say, what are we leaving if we are going to leave anything?
Hmm.
um, there's a great symposium coming up in March. I think it's Cambridge University in England that will be sharing that with people as well.
Mm.
So, without
Okay.
further ado, April, it's been really fantastic. Thank you for a first, very interesting
Our
discussion.
first episode. Yes, I loved
Anything
it.
you'd like to leave the audience with?
Um, just subscribe, like, share.
Okay,
Friday, please tune in
excellent. Well,
Friday while we discuss Shanquilla. So that's about
okay.
it.
So you close us out. Yeah,
Okay.
you close
So
us
thank
out,
you,
and we'll be
everybody.
good to go. We're gonna
Thank you, everybody, for showing up, for listening in.
good
We'll
night,
see you
and
Friday.
then we'll
Yeah. Have a safe night.
absolutely. Yep.
Bye bye.